James Harden was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers during the trade deadline this season, where people expected him to help the Sixers be more efficient on the offensive end of the court. The duo of James Harden and Joel Embiid started off great with the Sixers, where they won 4 straight games after their All-Star break, with James Harden not really being a scorer, but a playmaker that gets his team involved in the game. It wasn't that concerning to see James Harden not take as many shots as he used to, since they had Joel Embiid, who was one of the best centers in the league. However, people started to wonder if James Harden would be able to score efficiently when he had to. During the playoffs, it turns out the 76ers needed James Harden to score more than he usually does with the team because Joel Embiid obtained multiple injuries during the first round of the playoffs against the Raptors, where he suffered a right thumb injury in Game 3 and an orbital fracture and mild concussion in Game 6. Joel Embiid played through the right thumb injury, but he had to miss 2 games in the second round of the playoffs due to the right orbital fracture and concussion. Now James Harden had to be a scorer instead of a playmaker because Joel Embiid was out. Unfortunately, he was unable to do that, which is one of the reasons why they lost games 1 and 2 to the Heat. You can make the case that James Harden not being aggressive on the offensive end didn't make them lose the series, but when James Harden had 31 points in Game 4, they won. However, in every other game of the series against the Heat, when James Harden scored less than 25 points, they lost the game, except for Game 3. But that was probably because the Heat could barely score any points. This has led to the Sixers losing the series to the Heat in 6 games. James Harden has a player option, which gives him the decision to go back to the Sixers for 1 more year or go into free agency and get a deal. People don't really know if James Harden is going to use this player option or not, but there have been some reports that the Sixers are not expected to give James Harden a max contract if he decides to go into free agency. This is probably because James Harden plays subpar with the Sixers, and people didn't really see James Harden live up to his full potential of an offensive superstar. From Harden not really playing to his standards, people have seen it as his game declining. Even though James Harden averaged 21 points, 10.5 assists, and 7.1 rebounds with the Sixers, we have seen him have a better stat line during the season. His impact on the court is really good, but it seems like he was looking to pass more than shoot the ball this season. I think James Harden's game this season lessened because he suffered a significant hamstring injury when he was with the Brooklyn Nets last season that has affected him this season as well. Harden's injury probably made him have to change the way he plays. Another reason why it seems like James Harden's play has declined is because he might not have built a lot of chemistry with the Sixers since he only played 21 games with them. Harden probably didn't want to mess up what the Sixers were doing when he wasn't there, where Joel Embiid was having an MVP season and Tyrese Maxey was averaging a career high in points with 17.5. Maybe James Harden wants to be more of a facilitator that gets other guys open than a scorer because the Sixers did have some guys who can create their own shots like Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey. The 76ers didn't have a true point guard at the time, so James Harden was probably thinking of trying to play that role of a point guard instead of trying to find his own shot. I don't think Harden's game will continue to decline, but I think he won't have the same impact when it comes to scoring the ball that he has throughout his career. I think James Harden will use this season as motivation to figure out a way to be a better player and show that he is still capable of being one of the best players in the league.